so we're going to talk about a few things right now. First off, you are going to have the pleasure of getting and putting together your own telescope. You are going to have a blast with this thing. Unfortunately, when we teach astronomy, the best time to teach this stuff is at night. Well, we can't. So let me give you a tip about the telescope, something that we do at my school. Myself and one other science teacher both have telescopes, and depending on where our morning duty is located before the beginning of school, what we'll do is we'll actually set up our telescope outside next to our duty station. And then as students come into the school, they can come over and look into the telescope. Typically, we'll show the moon and stuff like that. And we're very fortunate, the area that we're in, it's very open, and there aren't any trees or anything like that to get in the way. So, but I know that you will have a lot of fun. Take it home, put it together, go out at night, look at those stars, look at those planets. If one of the highlights when I was here before is that I monkeyed around and I got a picture of Jupiter and it's the 4 largest moons, and then I got a picture of Saturn on my cell phone. So I was very, very pleased with myself. So, but have fun with your telescope. I know I have, and make sure, if you can, to try and let your students enjoy it too. Now, what we're going to do right now is we're going to talk about a couple of things. We're going to talk about making a star clock. Now you're going to say, what's a star clock? Well, most of your students, when you're talking about constellations and stars, most of them should know of at least a couple of constellations. The Little Dipper, the Big Dipper. They may know some of the other ones. Typically in my class, we'll get into a conversation about the zodiac, because of the zodiac symbols, and a lot of those are constellations. So that can broaden the names of the different constellations that they're going to know. But basically, what you're doing is when you and I've put this online for you. It's making a star clock, and there are a lot of things that you can do with this. I use this as an intro. It's a very simple device. What you're going to do is the instructions and template are included, but it's not really much more than, let me get to it, than this, okay? So basically what you've got is you've got 2 pieces that you need to cut out, and then you basically stick a brad in the middle, and you have something that looks like this, and you can spin the inner wheel and match it up to different times. Now, you're going to say, well, what do you do with this? Well, for my students, this is something that they've made. It identifies the Little Dipper and the Big Dipper and one other constellation, which is Cassiopeia. And but what they can do with this is that it's more or less an introduction into something they're going to get in a little bit. In fact, our next little section. And what they can do is they can go out and basically identify where the Little Dipper is, or where the Big Dipper is supposed to be, or Cassiopeia. The directions for how to use this, of course, are in the notes. But it's something small, it's something easy to carry around, it's easy for them to understand. They can go out typically at night and hold it up, and they'll just say, oh, look, that's where the Little Dipper is. So it gives them a way to identify it. But this one, like I said, it's very useful, very simple to put together. You can do it on cardstock. You can do it. This is on regular paper, so obviously it's held up pretty well. But that's the introduction. In fact, I've put a couple of these. It actually came from a book called Earth, Moon, and Stars. You should be getting a copy of this one too. And there's a lot of other good stuff in this that I think you will enjoy if you just read through it. A lot of the how the universe was made and good stories that I would have shared with y'all when y'all came. Maybe you'll get to do that with your students. But what you're also going to get in your packet is a planosphere. And it's going to look something like this. Now, I'm going to suggest that you get it out, you look at it, you play with it, and you're going to need to, get a better understanding before you have students go out and start looking at it, or using their planisphere that they're going to create. But basically, a planisphere, it shows the positions of the stars and constellations throughout the year. Okay, and it's for the northern hemisphere, because we can't see those stars and constellations in the southern hemisphere because Earth gets in the way. It's got information on the back. There are others. I actually have another one that's another planisphere. It actually has stuff on the zodiac. A lot of times I'll just hand these to the students and say, hey, tell me stuff about it. Let them explore. Let them kind of come up with their own answers before you just lay it on them. We'll let you release what you want them to do with it. So, but this is a really neat device. Go into as much depth as you want. A lot of times students, like I said, will notice several of the zodiacs that are on there, or zodiac symbols. But this is going to be yours. At some point, they're going to want their own. So what you're going to do is you are going to create a star wheel. Now, I have this one also on the information that should be sent to you. And you are going to get, it's something that they're going to have to put together and cut and put together. But it's going to look like this. And I would suggest, if you can, to put it on cardstock. If not, it's not a big deal. It works just as fine on regular paper. In fact, I have my students do it on regular paper. But cut it all out. Then the hard part really is cutting out that center section there, because students don't trust themselves to do it. And then have them put it together, and it looks something like this. This is very similar to your planisphere. It's got the dates and the months and the constellations in here. So now you're asking me, what are you going to do with this? Okay, so now they've gone from their star clock to this. Well, this obviously has more information on it. They're going to look at it, they're going to play with it, they're going to find the zodiac symbols and whatnot, but what can you do with it? So what you're going to do is you're going to have them track a constellation. Now, if they're smart, they're going to track a small constellation. But typically, students, they're going to pick the biggest ones and the ones with the most stars, and you're going to see that's going to be a little difficult in just a minute. So I've included this. This is called tracking a constellation throughout the year. And what they're going to do is they're going to choose a constellation, and for every month on the same day, they are going to draw that constellation, how it appears on their star wheel. Okay? Now, what they're going to notice, if they're doing it correctly, is that the constellation is going to turn. It is going to be literally spinning, or slowly spinning as the months progress. There are even going to be some months when it's going to disappear. I've included a couple of examples of these students that have done this. This one's Gemini, and you can see how as the year has progressed, it rotates. And then from June, July, and August, you can't see it. And then you can ask them, why can't you see it? Well, you can't see it because it's below the horizon. You can't see stuff that's below the horizon. And then it comes back out for September, October, November, December. So if you've got students that are brave enough to choose a constellation, like I said, like Draco or Orion, or some of the ones that are Scorpius, which is my favorite, then let them go for it. I mean, they're going to be drawing a lot, but it's theirs. They own it. If you have your, some of your other students that they're not as sure, then you can pick a much simpler one for them to follow throughout the year. But this is a great activity. It's not difficult. They don't have to take this home at night, and they can do it in class. They can, it will give them a better understanding of what is happening in our, here on Earth, and when we look up at the constellations at night. There are also some other stuff there's plenty of stuff online you can find about this. I hope that you have the best of luck with doing this, and that your students enjoy it as much as I do.